is Planet Poet Words in Space, and I'm your host, Sharon Israel. It's my pleasure to welcome back award-winning poet Alison Carb Sussman to discuss and read from her new poetry collection, Black Wool Cape. Hi, Alison.
Hi, Sharon. Thanks for having me
Oh,
on.
thank you for being on. For our listeners, I'm going to read your bio.
Okay.
In addition to Black Wool Cape, Alison's new poetry collection published by Unsolicited Press, the poet, a 2015 Pushcart Prize nominee, has garnered numerous awards and publications throughout her writing career. Her chapbook, On the Edge, was published by Finishing Line Press in 2013. Alison won the Abroad Writers Conference Finishing Line Press Authors Poetry Contest and read her winning poems as their guest in Dublin, Ireland in 2015. Her poem Dirty was a finalist in a Naugatuck River Review's 11th annual narrative poetry contest in 2019. Her poem Anhedonia, now Anhedonic Woman, was a finalist in the 49th Paris Parallel Award for Poetry in Bellingham Review's 2016 literary contests. Her poems have appeared in Atlanta Review, Cutthroat, a Journal of the Arts, Gargoyle, the New York Times, Rattle, Southword, and other publications. Alison lives and writes in New York City. Why don't we just jump in, Alison, and
Okay.
read a poem from the book?
Okay. I guess I'm going to start with Zion unblooming. And okay, here goes. Army children home from the West Bank, from Gaza, with bandages on their heads. The truck transporting them churns soil to dust. All around the desert is unblooming. Trees are becoming roots again, then seeds, then nothing, sucked back down into the still ground. There goes the irrigation system. Pipes have split. Water has run out, evaporated into a dried pit. The sky folds in, its edges pulled into a starless blank, a border beyond all borders. The truck passes solemn and dark. In the back, live bodies in uniform lie neatly stacked, eyeballs up, brains gone black. Barbed wire curtains we have drawn around cities, villages, settlements. Everyone scatters to let the truck pass. It races through down open sunny roads, then hits a landmine and explodes.
That's Alison Carb Sussman reading Zion Unblooming. What a title and what imagery, Alison. What inspired you to write this poem?
I was studying in Israel at Tel Aviv University and working on kibbutzim. And I spent, I spent about a year and several months in Israel. And I was very affected by the people and the terrain and things that I saw. And sometimes it was the most peaceful year Israel has ever had, except for an attack on I don't believe I remember what was attacked, but they had a raid on the PLO or something, but there was no war. And still the country lived with a siege mentality. So I wanted to write about that. And I wanted to write about what I saw and maybe add a touch of drama to it.
More than just a touch, Alison. Phenomenally dramatic. You start the collection, your collection, Black Wool Cape, with this poem. Would you tell us why?
I wanted a strong poem, something nightmarish. That the whole book seems to be in a dream or a nightmare. And I wanted something nightmarish that would convey the dance with war, with nightmares, something persistent and haunting. Well, I was also influenced by Galway Kinnell's Book of Nightmares.
Hmm.
And he wrote that in the 1970s, I believe. I'm not sure. But I read it a long time ago while I was writing this book, which took a span of years.
Mhm.
And I guess it seeped into my unconscious or consciousness. And I tried to have a title that would convey opening Pandora's box.
Mhm.
You know, all the little spirits and demons would come out.
That's
And
great. Alison, this poem is from your chapbook On the Edge.
yes, it forms, well, some of the poems in the book come from On the Edge, the chapbook, which was published in 2013. Some of the, I guess the book was built around a few of these poems, mainly the Israel poems, which I started with. And then I divided it up into 5 sections, and one of them was Israel. That I had, these are sections I had in my mind. In the book, there's sections 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but in my head, they were Israel, childhood, adulthood, madness, uh, and a view of the outer world, a growing view of the outer world, because it's just beginning in this book.
Thank you, Alison. Would you read the titular poem
Sure.
collection?
Uh, Dance with a black wool cape. Last night, I struggled with the black wool cape. It gripped me with sleeves of iron and tried to smother my rasping breath. Wildly it flapped, a flag gone off color, and cuffed my startled ears until they begged for silence. Then it rose, shimmering from my shoulders, and floated down narrow Jerusalem streets, whacking on sealed doors. But when I looked down, it returned in a flash and flung itself over my body.
It's Alison Carb Sussman reading the poem Dance with a Black Wool Cape, and the collection is called Black Wool Cape. I'm so fascinated by the tone and diction in your poem, Alison, and in many poems, the contrast between your formal, beautiful expression of sleeves of iron, and then you say the cape is whacking on sealed doors. And that combination I find unique to you. And do you do that on purpose, or is that just how the poems emerge for you?
It just sort of emerges that way. And then I look back and I notice it and I say, oh, that's great that it happened that way. But I don't really think of it. I didn't really think of it consciously because this poem was written many, many years ago, before I had taken I guess I had maybe taken a workshop or two, but the poem was early in my early 20s,
Mhm.
and I wasn't so experienced with poetic devices.
But it's you're such a natural poet. I mean, you knew what you were doing. That cape has a life of its own.
The Cape does have a life of its own. It could be a character that comes to greet the or to haunt, more likely to haunt the speaker,
Mhm.
and it it could be Israel, it could be war, or it could be something that persists after a long period of time, something nightmarish. Uh, it could be all those things, I guess.
Yes, and you give the reader a chance to figure out what the cape means to the reader. And of all the poems, you chose this as the from the title of this poem, you chose the title of the book. Can you talk briefly about that?
Sure. Um, I chose it as the title because it really hinted to me of nightmares, and I was still thinking about Galway Kinnell's The Book of Nightmares. And there's sort of a quality of, well, I don't want to repeat myself, but persistence or haunting or nightmarish quality. And the poem has this in it. And if I look at it now, I mean, everything is a little bit strange in the poem.
Which is a good thing.
Flag, yeah, the flag has gone off color. It is also sort of attacking the speaker, cuffing her ears. And then it goes away for a moment, but returns. And whatever it is, it's like a haunting spirit of some kind.
So it haunts the book. Thank you, Alison. This is Planet Poet Words in Space. I'm your host, Sharon Israel. I'm here with award-winning poet Alison Carb Sussman. And Alison, I'd like to read a blurb from your book, comments of praise from your book by Douglas Cole, the winner of the Leslie Hunt Memorial Prize for Poetry and author of the novel The White Field and other poetry books. The poems in Black Wool Cape oscillate between the innocent and the brutal, between the personal, sometimes surreal moment and the cool, detached journalist's report. These poems give us an Emersonian wandering eye perspective on the layers of human experience, from the political down to the excruciating immediate sensation, and this dance between the personal and the political, the adult perspective and the child's observance, shifts and turns throughout this collection like an inspector's examination of a crime scene. Alison Carb Sussman's book shall take a rightful place among poetry of witness. And that's a beautiful blurb and very true about your book. And it goes from the personal to the larger views.
Mm-hmm.
I'm especially thinking of the poems about your family and your family connections, poems about your mom, and you have two of them in this book, quite different. Would you read Mother on the Beach from the book?
Sure.
Thank you.
Mother on the Beach. She changes from her clinging silk dress into her sleek purple bikini. She swings and sways down the boardwalk in high-heeled sandals. I carry her towel, wearing my torn sneakers and billowing dress over my faded one piece. I seat myself on the boardwalk railing under my floppy sun hat, and watch her move across the crowded beach. She drops her sumptuous red leather bag by the shore, spreads out her towel, and spills back on it, belly to sky. She smooths suntan lotion over her skin and settles in for a long bake in the sun. My mother does not swim. She goes to the edge of the water, her hourglass shape blazing in the light. From far off, I copy her, wading first, getting my pale ankles wet. Men's eyes follow her as she walks along the beach, picking up shells, tracing their shapes with curious fingers, then discarding them.
What a poem that is. That's Alison Carb Sussman reading her poem from her collection, Black Wool Cape, Mother on the Beach. The sumptuous language that you use. You talk about the sumptuous red bag, but such sumptuous language, Alison. Such beautiful longing and wonder in this poem. Would you talk briefly about the speaker's relationship with her mother in the poem?
Okay. She's, well, when you're a little girl, your mother is sort of like goddess.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not that she can do no wrong. It's just that you admire her so much and you want to be like her. And we're also biologically programmed to imitate our parents. And so the little girl is imitating her mother, but she also has a personality and drive of her own that's coming to the forefront. And one of the ways it's revealed is that she says in the poem, men's eyes followed her along the beach. And I guess the implication is that men's eyes may not follow the little girl either at this point or in the future.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. The line sticks with me, but she did not go. So she didn't bathe. She did not go into the water.
Right.
She would not mess with that perfection in I guess. And then, Alison, you have a very different poem about a mother in the book. This one is With Mother at the Zoo. Would you read that for us?
Sure. With Mother at the Zoo. Years ago, after a long period of silence, I agreed to meet my mother at the Central Park Zoo, in front of the snowy owl brought down injured from the Arctic. I don't remember what we talked about. It was a gray, wistful day, a perpetual twilight. The air smelled of snow. We stood there staring at the owl turning his head above pale feathers and black speckled wings. Many years had passed since we had seen one another, taking those first tentative steps toward each other in a kind of awkward, tender dance. The owl watched with his great yellow eyes. Snow touched our noses like a brush of wings, and we watched the ground turn white together. The next year, my mother moved away to California to be with a new man. When I heard of the snowy owl's death, I felt as if something had been removed from inside me, some organ or other, that the scene of our reunion had been lost in the great shuffle of things.
That's Alison Carb Sussman reading her poem with Mother at the Zoo. Ah, that is so poignant. Beautiful reading, Alison.
Thank you.
Bring us into that poem in such a different atmosphere, a more, less sunlight, more gray than in the first poem. I saw this poem for the first time in the New York Times.
Oh,
I said, oh my goodness. Can you tell us about that, Alison?
sure. It was in the New York Times in 2014 in June, I think the 8th. And it was in the city Metro Diary. And it was I was very surprised when they took it, but they said it sounds like a diary to us. So I thought, well, that makes sense. And then I was also surprised, and it was a little different from what's in the book now. The poem was, I guess, rougher and longer. And I was a little surprised when I saw the beautiful illustration by Victor Curlow of the snowy owl and two silhouettes of women in the pupils of the owl's eyes.
It was so big too.
It was so big, and I don't know. I'm used to seeing little cartoons in the Times, that section. And I guess they did, it was something nice that I guess they did. I felt like it was a gift.
It was a gift to all of us because it's a spectacular poem with that illustration. It just had pride of place as it deserved. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Alison, would you read another poem from the book Cape May Gold?
Sure. Let me just go to it. Cape May Gold. Dark fields, rippling leaves, 5:30 a.m. A fish carcass cracks under my shoe. Bird songs burst from behind my half-closed lids. Mist surrounds shiny trunks. Rain droplets shower down. Branches brush my face. Grass grips my ankles. I trip on tussocks, slip in mud. Colors blaze like gods on fire. Golden, indigo, emerald, ivory, ink, scarlet, russet. Motionless, a female yellow warbler listens to a male's song. I want you to love me again, your boyish, high-spirited body twisting around me while dawn shivers through the trees.
That's Alison Carb Sussman reading Cape May Gold. What imagery. And that poem is a special poem to the dawn. It's the form is called an Aubade, Aubade, which I've just recently heard about. But the colors, you do the colors, and then all of a sudden it's the bird listening to another bird song, and it becomes so personal. Beautiful segues. Absolutely, absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Alison. You're listening to Planet Poet, Words in Space. I'm your host, Sharon Israel, with award-winning poet Alison Carb Sussman. And now from Manhattan to bring us the latest poetry news and the latest in poetic insights is Planet Poets Poet at Large, poet and visual artist Pamela Manché Pearce. Pamela's latest book is Charles Street Trio, a novel in 3 voices. Her co-authors are Kate Farrell and Anthony Valerio, available on Amazon. Hi, Pamela.
Hello, Sharon. Hello, Allison.
Hello.
I can't wait to finish my segment so I can get back to hearing your work, Allison. It's profoundly moving, and your work is just gorgeous. So thank you for what you bring into the world. It really does a lot for all of us. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for listening.
Yeah, I know. I'm loving it. So, and I love being on the show. So thank you for having me once again, Sharon. This connection with mothers, I have to just say at the beginning, Allison's poem about the mother, the mother on the beach, and as I was listening to that, I was thinking of Sharon's poem Red Coat in her chapbook voice lesson, and the line, I had it right here, and the line, not knowing that about her mother, gone, gone, gone. She was that gorgeous. His Lena, his Luna, his own Vivian Lee. So this idea of having glamorous mothers, you're welcome, Sharon, of having glamorous mothers, we all share that. If it's okay, Sharon, I have the only poem in this new book of the Charles Street Trio. So I'd like to read my poem and then come back and talk a little bit about the book with whatever time we have left.
Great.
Okay, good. So I was working with the 2 other writers on this book, and I just, for them, I sent a little blurb about poetry and me, and they put it in. So this is the intro to my poem. I fell in love with poetry as a teenager. William James describes my experience perfectly. Quote, the strangely moving power of passages in certain poems read when we were young, irrational doorways as they were, through which the mystery of fact, the wildness and pang of life stole into our hearts and thrilled them, end quote. And that is a quote that has followed me since I discovered it many years ago. And I always go back to it, and it's kind of a signature of mine. So I appreciate having that in the book.
And just congratulations on the book.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's
Delighted. The poem that I have in there is called The Star. The book is really about the early years. We call it the early years. It's book 1 of what we hope a series, and it's called The Early Years. So I said, well, I have something about birth. You can't get earlier than that. So this is my poem, The Star. Listen, if you think the story of your birth will include you, you are so wrong. That, dear, is your mother's story. You probably came out in blood and wonder, howling, because she had not yet told you not to, ever. But all she said was that it was a close morning and that she had almost no pain. And in minutes you were there, a living doll in her arms. But you can use your imagination for the rest of it. Her shapely tan legs in the stirrups, red pedicured toes curled to brace for the final push, her jade green eyes smoked over with melted mascara, closed as her long blonde glamour girl hair in wet ropes thrashed the pillow. And that photo, her Veronica Lake dew curtained her baby from the camera as she proudly nursed the little thing inside her Luxe bed jacket, a triumphant smile above the ruffled collar. The saga she created started with that silk organza bed jacket. She showed it to visitors for years to come. Brown, stained with milk, her milk, which she had given to you. And also in her little museum of motherhood, the Morris chair where she nursed you, slip-covered to preserve the drops of dried milk on its mahogany arm. And the tiny pastel caps and sweaters she had intricately knitted for you as she waited out the long months. I replaced the doll she had lost in childhood as her raucous sisters and brothers who hid giggling behind sheets drying in the cellar as she discovered her doll, now a paraplegic torso, floating in a steaming washtub amidst its severed limbs. But now she could own you, dress you, and show you off and say proudly that mommy's baby were your first words. Mommy's baby, possession, her thrill. But didn't you ever wonder why your baby book ended so abruptly after the entry, baby removed a slat from her playpen and escaped into the hallway and down the stairs? And then you spent the rest of your life banging on her dressing room door.
Oh, wow.
Oh my goodness, that's Pamela Manché Pearce reading her poem. What is the name of the poem again?
The Star.
The Star.
Star.
That's like
So that's my contribution to glamorous Mother's Day here on Planet Poet.
absolutely terrifying.
Well,
Wow.
hey,
We
well,
all
here.
have glamorous mothers.
Yes,
That's a
yes.
tough poem.
And in contrast to that, I mean, in this wonderful book that I created, I'm the co-author of this book with Anthony Valerio and Kate Farrell. Kate's every contribution in this book is about her mother. And I'd like to read a couple of sentences of hers. We're in contrast to what we are talking about. Kate came from a family of 8 children. She's number 6 in a family of 8. And she says in this book, all my life, mom's body never had enough time for me. I remembered slaps, quick hugs, fast kisses, lips wet with whiskey, fingers dangling a cigarette or a baby. All her body parts were too busy for me. So clearly fascinated with this relationship between mother and especially mother and daughter. And I found many poems where women are writing about their mothers. Ada Limon has a beautiful poem called The Raincoat. Alison is nodding, and she had scoliosis and talks about her mother's sacrifice, taking her to all of these appointments, and at the end really realizing what that meant. Christina Rossetti idolizing her mother on her birthday in a very soft and beautiful love poem. So it varies, but this relationship is endlessly fascinating, and we all work on it all the time.
It's endlessly fascinating, but the poem is so complicated. It's about a birth, but it's such a narcissistic expression of birth because it's all about your mother, and it's understandable, but you're sort of just like the byproduct of
I'm the doll.
Well, Pamela Manché Pearce, best of luck with the book, The Charles Street Trio. We look forward to your being with us next time.
Excellent. I look forward to it. And Alison, I hope to see you in the meantime. And I'm going to just go back to being a very happy listener now.
Loved your book.
Thank you.
Pamela Manché Pearce, poet at large, Planet Poet, Words in Space. Thank you so much. And this is Planet Poet. I'm your host, Sharon Israel, and I am here with Alison Carb Sussman, award-winning poet, who's been sharing her spectacular book, Black Wool Cape, with us. And Alison, I want to read the epigraph that you used for the poem by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry.
Mm-hmm.
I lay there pondering my situation, lost in the desert and in danger, naked between sky and sand, withdrawn by too much silence from the poles of my life. what a way to, when you open the book and here this is, that's from The Little Prince,
Mm-hmm.
Prince. And
No, wait a minute. I think it's
not
from Night Flight.
Night Flight.
I
Okay.
think it's from Night Flight because his plane crashes in the Libyan desert and he's revived by a Bedouin in that desert. And I really felt that quote summed up the speaker's position and feelings. And I just wanted to have something that would describe the speaker as pondering, lost, in danger, naked, withdrawn by the silence from the poles of her life.
It's a wonderful opening for the book. It gets us there with you on this whirlwind journey that you're taking us on. So your poetic influences are many and varied. And you had mentioned that Mary Oliver was influential on you. And you have a lot of wonderful nature writing. It's very Alison, though. It's not, it has your spirit and your personality in it. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I love Mary Oliver, and she also had many nightmarish things that happened to her in her childhood. And she writes specifically about nature and hope and resilience of the human being. And I wanted to put a little bit of that in there. I hope I didn't get too dark. I also was reading at the time Mark Strand, T.S. Eliot, Galway Connell, Anne Carson, and many other poets who may have had an influence over what I did. And I'm sure they did actually have an influence. And they are amazing poets. And my mother had read me T.S. Eliot when I was about 9 or 8 or 9 years old.
Kind of early to hear Eliot, right?
Yes, it was early, but I loved it. I just loved the sound of it and the rhythm and the imagery that he conjured up in my mind. I didn't understand it with all his references to birth, copulation, and death, and that sort of thing. But I later grew into his poem and understood it much more than when I was a little one.
It's the cadences also that, you don't really need to understand exactly what's going on, but it's the cadences that are so fantastic. And I shouldn't say that. I think children have very profound emotions and understanding. Mm-hmm. They just are powerless and don't know how to express themselves with adult language. Mm-hmm. But I think everything is there.
Yes. I think you're right.
And Alison, you have a terrific poem in the book called "Hooray for Empty Lots." Would you read that for us?
Sure. It's a little lighter than the other poems in the Israel section, which is nice. Hooray for empty lots. Give me wildflowers, those sturdy, thrusting intruders. They tumble through the lot, creep the fence, hang over the street. The grasses surge up, only to be stopped at the lot's exit. The flowers claw their way through the chain link, wild and prickly, What developer would dare venture in here without a scythe? The weeds towering sunflower high, and people's discards. Give me a pair of baby booties, a Jimmy Choo shoe, a torn scarf, a used dish rag, the pot over there, still with congealed food in it. What these people ate, what they used to cook their food on, the stove, all tangled up in creepers, purple petals peeking from oven doors. Give me Roman ruins, the rubble of Manhattan reinventing itself, a maniacal shapeshifter. Oh, these flowers with their long leaves snagging the rain and sucking it up, snaring the soot, funneling it down into their pistils. Let's hear it for bulbous buttercups inhaling construction air. Buildings going up around them, and they party. Give me this jungle, which allows me to breathe free, if only for the moment it takes me to pass it. But I return again and again, letting leopard lilies brush my face. The vines and flowers never die. Fires can rage through, but the wildflowers always come back.
That's Alison Carb Sussman reading her poem, Hooray for Empty Lots. The leopard lilies brush my face. I can read the whole poem again for this amazing imagery that you have in here. What an ironic title. This lot is not empty. This lot is filled with this gorgeous imagery and life and crawling to be heard, to be seen. Can you tell us a little bit about that, the irony of the title and the content?
Well, it seems that we as a society have made a lot of progress in building tall, ugly buildings. I shouldn't actually say that, but some of them are really ugly in Manhattan. And we have forgotten nature and how we are tied to nature so inextricably, even our sense of time. Once you put a person out in the woods, they start going by the real time, which is the sunlight. And in the city, it's all artificial. Everything is artificial. And if you get an empty lot filled with flowers that nature has chosen to paint on and create a canvas of beautiful things, they're not just weeds, they're beauty. And developers may see the lot as empty, but when you pass by it, it's filled with life and it's incredible. And also, in looking back on the book, I think that I was also making reference to Jews as a people who are very resilient and always come back to life. And just people.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Alison. That's really wonderful. Alison, how do you begin a poem and how do you know when a poem is finished?
Well, I write on a big yellow pad and I write in longhand so I can feel every word coming out through my hands and wrists. And what I do is I go through the pad when I finished and I look for like things that catch my eye or things that catch my ear or something that is a hot spot that really resonates. And I pull it out, and maybe that's the beginning of a poem, or maybe it isn't, but in any case, it is something. And also, because I leave a lot of time between writing poems, most of them, or at least some of them, come out almost finished. And I just have to do a little editing and adding maybe of some lines in elsewhere in the pad to create a poem. And I never know when a poem is finished, because I do know when a poem is finished, but I never know if it's going to be completely finished, because some poems last for like years, and you have to wait for their endings, or you have to wait for a fresh eye to see them. And I have edited poems to death and had to put lines back in because
You don't want to kill the poem.
I don't want to kill the poem.
Alison, would you read At the Roman Colosseum for us, please?
Yes. Let me just take a drink of water. At the Roman Colosseum, the wind carries the breath of the dead. Sunlight brushes toppled stones. Yesterday, I visited Hadrian's villa, his marble statues, tiled floors, and pool with a view. Imagined Hadrian, slaughterer of Jews, crowning his boy lover's head with deep purple hyacinths. Now, my floppy hat barely shields me from the invincible Roman sun. I sit on a stone, spread my madras skirt. Would I have lived in the Jewish ghetto outside the palace, in the house of a money changer, by the sea with a trader of animal skins? In sneakers, I walk around fallen pillars, cobblestone streets nearly buried by grasses, pipes of a sewage system from 2 AD, people who thought they would reign for centuries. Am I a ruin, my memory an artifact in time? I want the bones of those gone to tell mine how to live in this world.
Wow, beautiful. Alison Carb Sussman reading At the Roman Colosseum. You have the gravitas of Hadrian, slaughterer of Jews, and you're sitting in there in the Colosseum with your floppy hat. It's so you, Alison. It brings it into the present. The speaker is so accessible. Just beautiful. And how you bring the poem, it brings back the beginnings of the book. If you want to say a couple of things about that.
Sure. Well, I believe that we always live in the shadows of the ancient, even here in Manhattan. And there aren't ruins here in Manhattan, but we have the legacy of Rome and Greece and other ancient civilizations that come to us through books and through films and art. I really believe that words like floppy hat and madras skirt and stone and invincible Roman sun all express this ancient juxtaposed with the modern, which I didn't really notice until I had finished writing the book. And then I noticed it and I thought, oh, I learned something.
How splendid for us that you did that. Ellison, if people are interested in your book, Black Wool Cape, how can they find more information about it?
It is available from unsolicitedpress.com and also on Amazon and also at Barnes and Nobles online.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's been wonderful. I think we have a little time. If you can go out with another poem without memory.
Sure. This one is called Without Memory, and it's, I want to go to that place. Water has no memory, neither does light. Water over my hands, pure, fresh, a day that burns clear. I have blocked out much. Memory is as deadly as mercury, as poisonous as snakes, fire, smoke, nuclear fission. Memory can blow your eyes out of your skull. I want to be born anew at every instant, born from rain, born like the cry from a blue jay, born in floods of sunlight, washing over the buildings across the way. Born from my bed, my nest, the egg I hatch from every day. Haul me born from my grave. Take me to where waters beat clear and cool against the heartland of the earth. Bring me a freshet of fish. Give me a name so I may join the family of men and women. Give me a country so I may die an honorable death. Give me the gift of a blank mind so I can absorb the world's music. Give me in entirety, not paralyzed or maimed. It is the hour when light stands still in the courtyard and figures stop hurrying to and fro, and a long shadow falls from behind a building, and a melted watch hangs from a tree. Memory, it will not get me.
Thank you so much, Alison Carb Sussman, for your wonderful work and your beautiful reading. It's been a tremendous pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me, Sharon. It's been a pleasure too.
And thank you, Pamela Manché Pearce. And thank you so much for listening.